I would say that the brands who really embrace the creators and say, this is my challenge. Like, for example, I want to make social content, but I have these regulations, and empower them to come up with clever ideas. Those are the brands that soar, whether it's related to regulation or anything else. Like, we have some brands who will really empower the creator community to make content around their brand, and they won't be as tight or restrictive in the way that they were raised in creating content. Because in the beginning, you had to be very prescriptive. You only got one video and it cost you $1 million. You got to get it right. But now you can make 1,000 videos with 1,000 people. You could actually empower them to come up with their own ideas and be delighted by their creativity. That's a new muscle that a lot of brands still have to learn. So now, to take a step back again, you had print catalogs and in-store transactions. Then you had online catalogs and in-store transactions. And then you had online catalogs and online transactions. But then, a little more than a decade later, you have this big shift, or 2 decades now, you have this big shift with social. And the shift on the social side is also a consumption question. We used to consume a lot of our content through production quality content on television. And then mobile came around and we started consuming more bite-sized content. And then these social channels created a world where the people who create the content are not necessarily production agencies or production studios, but are in fact average consumers. And that is social. Social is the biggest publisher in the world, amongst Face, Beta, and TikTok and others. And they don't actually create any content. It's all made by average consumers. And so that shift in consumption is now colliding with the shift in commerce. And if you think about it, instead of consuming advertising content on television, which would previously drive me in store and then eventually drove me into online commerce, now that inflection point is creating a world where content is being created on social for consumption on social, and the natural evolution of that is for commerce to happen on social as well. Right. And all the big players in that space, who today are the biggest publishers and some of the largest data holders in the world, they quickly will compete for the Amazon and Shopify market share by ensuring that all commerce happens within their 4 walls.
I mean, I find it interesting too, like if you look at TikTok, which is a young property, and how dominant it has become in short form video, and how cloned with Reels and YouTube Shorts, and how big legacy retail brands like Walmart have, boldly gone in and done more in a short time than many cooler companies, right, than Walmart. What do you think about that? What does that say about sort of where we are in this phase that you're talking about? I don't know if it's phase 4 of the whole commerce cycle, but like, when I look at, what's happening, what's happened so fast, what inning are we in, David?
For us, like, we grew up in a world where creation was very limited. And the next generation is growing up in a world where every single person on the planet is capable of creating content. And then that leads to another shift, which is interesting to think about, and tying back to your question with Walmart. If creation is changing, that means consumption is changing. If consumption is changing, in due time, relevancy and ensuring that you're capturing people's attention is quickly shifting. And that's what Walmart's picking up on. And there are many other challenger brands that are also picking up on it and thinking through that process. If I want to sell to the future consumer, I need to learn how to talk to the future consumer. The future consumer has attention span shift. They just operate differently. We might, like an older generation, like my grandpa, who would sit down and read a newspaper, or my father, and even at one point myself, that's just yesteryear. They're consuming content that's bite-sized. 1.7 second shelf life of video content is a whole new attention span. And so if I'm a big player in retail, a big player in commerce, I've got to rethink that trend and how I maintain attention span with those folks.